Solemn celebrations of Corpus Christi celebrated at the Holy Sepulchre. The first Israeli museum dedicated to mosaics in Ma'ale Adumim. On the first day of the Holy Trinity, 17 students from the Salesian Ratisbon Theological Institute of Jerusalem were ordained deacons at St. Anne's Church. European, Israeli, and Palestinian musicians together for integration. The fourth Sounding Jerusalem Festival gets off to a start. The Solemnity of Corpus Christi is celebrated on the Thursday after the feast day of the Holy Trinity. The celebration began the day before in Jerusalem, in the Holy Sepulchre, with a solemn procession in the afternoon, and then with the office of reading during the night, presided by the Franciscan friars. On the Thursday morning, accompanied by the seminarians of the Patriarchate, His Beatitude Monsignor Fahad Toual presided the Mass together with the parish priests and the Franciscans. The procession with the Holy Sacrament went round the tomb of the Holy Sepulchre 3 times. It was a special and very moving moment for all those taking part, where the mystery of the Holy Sacrament, the memorial of the Passion, embraced the memorial of the Resurrection, on the exact same spot where he rose and today is contemplated in the sacrament of his body and his blood. The first Israeli museum wholly devoted to mosaics has been opened in Ma'ale Adumim, just a few kilometers east of Jerusalem, in the middle of the desert where, according to the Bible, the lands of the tribes of Benjamin and Judah separated. It stands on the spot commemorating the events told in the parable of the Good Samaritan. Mosaics and finds from Judea, Samaria, and Gaza, the result of 9 years of archaeological excavations, are on display in the museum. The mosaic floor of a church, which is believed to have stood next to the Inn of the Good Samaritan, built in Byzantine times to commemorate the parable narrated by the Gospel of Luke, was found on the site of the museum. This area, on the road taken by pilgrims on their way to Jerusalem from the Jordan Valley, was in the hands of bandits. In the Byzantine period, therefore, the site was rehabilitated as a stopping place for pilgrims who could find haven from evildoers. An inn was built with a church, cistern, and fortress nearby. During the Crusades, the inn was renovated and a fortress was built on top of it to watch over the road leading to Jerusalem. Today, the museum is housed in an Ottoman building, which encloses the whole site in its perimeter. In memory of the parable in Luke's Gospel, which quotes 3 men of different faiths, a priest, a Levite, and a Samaritan, mosaics and objects from Jewish and Samaritan synagogues, as well as from Christian churches, are on display. After the 6 Franciscan friars ordained on 23rd of May by the hands of Monsignor Giacinto Marcuzzo in the Church of St. Saviour, last Sunday, in St. Anne's Church, another 17 young people who had trained in Jerusalem became deacons. By the imposition of the hands and consecration prayer of Monsignor Luc Val-Louis, a Salesian and Bishop of Ghent in Belgium. 11 of the 17 new deacons are also Salesians, whilst the other 6 are missionaries of Africa, of the White Fathers. They all studied at the Ratisbon Theological Institute of Jerusalem. The feast day of the Holy Trinity is celebrated on the first Sunday in June. The reading of Matthew's Gospel ends with the confirming words of Jesus. And behold, I am with you always, until the end of the age, which the bishop commented as follows. Today we are witnesses that God has wanted and wants to take us to the end of the age, because once again he has chosen other men to be his priests, and he has chosen them from all nations to be able to speak in all the languages of the world. A cross-section of the universality of the Church. These young men come from 8 different countries: Haiti, India, Japan, Nigeria, Italy, Zambia, the USA, Ethiopia, and Burkina Faso. The crowd that gathered at St. Anne's was also heterogeneous and multilingual, with relatives and family members, some of whom have come from very far afield, and there were also many men of religion and friends who live in Jerusalem and who shared the experiences and daily lives of these deacons in the 3 years of their training in the Holy City. The friends also included some Jews and some Muslims. The celebration, except for the Latin of the Eucharist liturgy, was mainly in English, but there were also prayers and singing in French and in Italian. The rite of ordination was enthralling and moving, and it was an intense movement for all. From the promise of obedience and service to the Church to the litany of the saints, whilst the deacons were prostrate on the floor, to the moment of climax when the bishop, after having laid his hands on the head of each deacon in silence, pronounced the prayer of consecration. Now deacons, newly ordained, with their stole and dalmatics, received the gospel of Christ from the hands of the bishop. The kiss of peace with each of the new deacons concluded the rite of ordination. It is an important day because these two groups of deacons, White Fathers and Salesians, will be ordained priests in their own countries. This means that the only thing they do together is the diaconate, and here in Jerusalem, just imagine. I say to these deacons that they must be witnesses to the love of Christ and must not concern themselves with anything else. They must only be witnesses of the love of Christ. It is wonderful being a deacon, because a deacon serves everybody, and so servants are the finest in the world. This is the message that I would like to give them. At the end of the celebration, outside the church, brothers, relatives, and friends embraced the new deacons with great emotion. An appeal for peace and the respect for diversity in the delicate sound of piano and strings. This takes place at Sounding Jerusalem, a festival of chamber music now held for the 4th time, where European, Israeli, and Palestinian musicians perform on the same stage. Organized by a group of European artists, the festival intends to promote cultural and ethnic integration through music. On the opening evening at the Austrian Hospice, in the heart of the Old City, a quartet of Austrian and Israeli artists played pieces by Brahms. A series of 25 concerts will alternate over a period of 3 weeks, not only in Jerusalem, but also in Palestinian towns with the participation of local musicians. The Austrian conductor, Erich Oskar Heuter, director of the event, had the idea of holding this festival when he lived in Ramallah, the capital of the Palestinian territories. He felt the desire to create something that would allow people to get to know the reality of those who live there and that could reduce differences. I believe that music is an international language that can be understood independently of the country where you live, your culture or religion. I started from this assumption. Our musicians are all of a high standard and can universally translate the language of music, a language which goes beyond conflicts. Pluralism and reciprocal respect, and a sign that differences are not barriers. In the harmony of music, the hope that this can ease the relations between peoples. This initiative, which although is not talked about much in the international press, is worthy of applause for all those who live in the Holy Land.